You think your mind thinks, the body thinks, and the body thinks a lot more clearly than the mind. So when your body is confused, you are in trouble.
There's something horrible that has to happen in your life to awaken you.
The death of my sister led to this experience in my life where I have peeled so many layers to see life in its, who am I?
And then when I understood your soul's journey, I had to go through all the shit that I had to go through my life so that I can be here today.
When heartbreak happens, no matter how it comes to you, I think there's two things that can happen. You can fall into depression. On the other end of the spectrum, it's like God or some life force, some energy, whatever you want to call God, gives you like this massive power of motivation to take your life in a direction which is, to a higher purpose.
What in your mind do you think would help someone at that fork in the road of their lives? I can go this path where I can elevate, or I can go this path and just drop.
You don't do anything with expectation. Your idea of what your expectations are so limiting that so much more can happen for you than you think. So stop having ideas of what should happen to you. Guys, there's a way. There are tools, the way there are tools to, learn computer science, to learn coding. There's an entire manual for self-transformation.
You're listening to the Men's Forum.
Your guide to being a better man.
Here we talk about everything to do with dealing with the nuances of life as a man.
This is your safe space to finding solutions to any problem you could be facing as a man.
We're your hosts Rajveer and Shalin, and we're sitting down with guests who share their personal experiences and insights, adding depth and new perspectives to our discussions. Today, we're thrilled to have Chandni Khetia, who's a dedicated practitioner of yoga and spirituality. Chandni will be sharing her journey into spirituality from trying out Ayahuasca to following Sadguru and finding the highest form of bliss through yoga. We've brought her on because we believe there's a strong link between spiritual practices and improving men's mental health, and as well as gaining mental clarity for better decision making. Listen in as she debunks common misconceptions about spirituality and offers invaluable advice on what it means to starting these practices and why you should consider them. Thank you so much, Chandni, for joining us on today's episode of the Men's Forum. We're so excited to have you. I have known you since the time I shot your engagement.
Pre-COVID, that lifetime.
Shalin sent me a message saying, "Do you know Chandni Khetia?" And I'm like, know her, she's my homie. He's like, we got to bring her onto a podcast. And I'm like, bet, let's do it.
Thanks, guys. Thank you, Rajveer. Thank you, Shalin, for having me. It's wonderful what you're doing. So I'm very grateful to be a part of it. Thank you for the invitation. My name is Chandni. And I guess the reason I'm here is to support this from a yogic perspective. I teach classical Hatha yoga, more specifically Isha classical yoga, practices structured, designed by Sadguru. You guys heard of Sadguru?
Yes. We follow him religiously.
Yes. So Sadguru had an absolutely immense impact on my life. I had the great fortune of meeting him here. So back in 2016, he was actually visiting Kenya on an International Day of Yoga tour in Africa. So he was going to South Africa, Kenya, and Uganda. And when he was coming to Kenya, I had just come back from backpacking in South America. I had spent 4 months in South America on my own. When I decided to go, I did not know the language. I did not know anybody there. As an Indian girl, I still am shocked that my parents let me go. I mean, it was one of those, like, you don't have a choice. I'm doing this. My heart's desire is pulling me this way. But, I understand that they just felt the safety and security aspect of letting a girl go off on her own into the world. But I went. And then when I came back, there was this gap in my life because I had these big, profound experiences of life. And I came back and I didn't know what to do with myself. And I had this job, a corporate job before, which I essentially only kept to make money so that I could fund my trip to South America. Because when you become financially free, then nobody can tell you anything. But I had pretty much run dry on almost all my savings because I was going to South America for 2 months, ended up there for 4. So when I came back, there was this gap. It was a vacuum. And I didn't know what direction to take my life, what I was going to do. And then in the truest of words, when the student is ready, the master will appear. Sadguru shows up. Man, Sadguru showed up like this lightning bolt because I think I was just so receptive and so ready. So it was just meeting him. And I was volunteering for the event because it was the first of its kind here in Kenya. So he was coming, he was going to do an in conversation. It happened at Oshawa Center. And the tickets were so limited, the seating was so limited, but I just had this urge to meet him. And I also got lucky that I got to volunteer for the program. But what we didn't know is that after the program finished, he had a meet with the volunteers. It was almost like just to say a thank you. And we didn't know that. We found out on the day that Sadhguru wants to meet the volunteers, so please stay back. So this whole group of volunteers, we were waiting for him, and he just came and sat next to me. Boom, on the steps. It wasn't even like he had this beautiful setup and a chair. He just came and he sat right next to me. And man, that moment, lifetimes of longing to be in the presence of him, because there was something about him. You know, when you can't put words to it, but someone's presence is so powerful and you're next to it and you're like, what's going on here? And he spoke to us, and then before he left, he's like, if anyone has a burning question which they will not be able to sleep tonight if they don't answer, ask it now. And man, my mouth rushed before my senses could, and I was asking him, largely because I was like at this, crossroads in my life, and the question doesn't matter, but what he responded was that, do you want your life to be, what were his exact words? I should say them exactly how he said it. Do you want your life to be a self-start or a push start? And that really stayed with me. He'd asked for my hand. He's like, can I hold your hand? Can I touch your hand? And I was like, yes. Man, something happened. And I couldn't sleep that night because I'm like, is my life on self-start or is it on push start? And that really stayed with me.
What does that question really mean to you? Or what did it mean to you back then? Self-start or push start? Like in what context?
It's like, are you going to be the reason your life happens? Or are you going to let it just slip by you? Is your life just going to happen? Or are you going to actively participate and willingly
take charge?
Yeah, let life happen to you in the most beautiful of ways. So it was to come out of a certain slumber. And then it made me go back to how much of life was just passing me by and I was just letting it happen, right? You just dismiss yourself to let life be as opposed to take charge and ownership. So he also talks about, so many of you want to go in, you're trying to go into first gear, and what's happening is your life is going in reverse. You're trying to push forward, but what's happening is you're just going backwards. It's because all your energies, your mind, your structure is not moving in the same direction. So how much of your life is really in your charge? That's what it was about. And it was very scary because at that point, I feel like so much didn't feel like it was.
You mentioned inner engineering.
Yeah.
What's inner engineering all about?
So inner engineering is Sadhguru's flagship offering from Isha. Inner engineering is so many things, but essentially in a nutshell, it's a 21-minute meditation practice, okay? So when the first program happened here, it was in person. Now the entire model has moved online because it's so much more accessible to anyone, anywhere in the world. But we attended 7 sessions, after which I experienced what was my first initiation. So it's an initiation into a Kriya called Shambhavi Mahamudra, which is a 21-minute practice. But man, it's something really amazing. So Sadhguru's intention with inner engineering is to connect one to the creation, to source, okay, to the creation of life, not to your thoughts and your emotions, but to creation of life itself, okay? And in experience. So it's not something somebody talks about, but it's about internalizing a certain experience. And my experience caught me off guard completely because it was so big. I was actually left speechless. I remember going to the inner engineering teacher and just saying, I'm like, I don't know what happened, but that was huge. Something happened, fundamentally something, such a big experience that I was not expecting happened. And then, of course, in that moment only, I had decided I need to explore this more. And I went to the yoga teacher training, which happens only at the ashram. It happens for 5 months. And before that, a consecration. What are these words? In my experience, gurus didn't believe in all of that. Ashram, people who wear orange saris and shave their heads. So many misconceptions. But I just knew in that moment, I need to explore this some more. So Inner engineering is now a way of life. It's not just a practice. It embodies you so completely that it just becomes a way to live, inner engineered.
Before all of this, did you ever okay, two things that I'm just hearing from here. You keep mentioning something happened. Yeah. And I feel like maybe you can agree or disagree. Did that come from you having an open heart to the whole experience? Because you can have people who are just really skeptical and they're like, yeah, I'm just going to go and attend this. And then they're very closed-minded and then nothing really happens for them. And then they'll go out there and say, that's just a bunch of shit. So do you feel like you had that open heart?
Absolutely. I think open heart happened being in South America, being in the Amazon jungles, which is a whole other. But I think the right expression to how I was, the state I was in when I was there, was I was receptive.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was receptive because I really didn't know anything, which was a great starting point. So I didn't have these misconceptions or preconceived ideas of what this should be. I really knew nothing. This was so outside anything my whole life had been.
Would you be able to share any experience that you had in South America that you feel like was the tipping point for you to become more receptive to life and spirituality in general?
I would say that my backpacking, which I now recommend to everyone in their early 20s or whenever life opportunities present itself, is that it's school of life. You know, the backpacking community in South America is a little more mature. That's what I found. So it was very conducive to be a girl alone and be able to move around because all you have is your backpack and you. So you're so materially dispossessed. You have your basic clothes. Maybe you pick up a relic here or there, but your belongings are so limited that they don't define you. So what you're really chasing is experience of life. So if I have to take it back a little bit more, I was involved in a car accident where my sister passed away. And this tragic death impact shook my system to the core that I was diagnosed with PTSD, post-traumatic stress. And for a while, I actually lost my visual apparatus in the sense I went colorblind. I stopped seeing color. And at this point, I was in university and I was living in Cape Town, which is a mother city to me because Cape Town has really nurtured me. You know, when you leave high school and go into university, if you leave the country, it's your first opportunity of living alone. Over there, I started to, after the death of my sister, I started to spend a lot of my time alone in shock. My system had literally gone into shock. And this question came to me, who am I? And it came from such a depth. It wasn't that, I'm Chandni, I'm this old and I come from here and this is what I study. It was, who am I fundamentally? What the hell is going on here? And of course, that was such an awakening for me because I finished my undergrad degree, did my postgrad degree in international relations with a minor in Buddhism. I was studying international relations, picked up Mandarin because I'm like, that's going to be useful. Went to China on an exchange program because I was learning Mandarin at the time. And we got exposed to the Buddhist culture over there. I came back and I studied the Buddhist philosophy in a postgraduate academic environment. So my first experience of meditation was actually in a lecture theater with my professor, who was this Buddhist practitioner, and she was an embodiment of compassion. Okay, so that was really fundamentally a turning point. So I learned about Buddhism, and then I went to do a Vipassana course, which is a 10-day, I'm coming back to your question. Vipassana takes you into 10 days of silence. And I had studied this in a very technical sense. I had read the text of the Buddha, but what was missing was the practical application. So 10 days in Vipassana in silence, where you learn systematically the meditation of Vipassana, was like now the merging of the theory with the practical, right? And it was a home run for me. The experience was so profound and it pushed me straight into being connected to my life, where I was just looking for sanity, because post-traumatic stress, it really suppresses your ability to handle life. And with it comes your mental structure. You're mentally distressed and you're living in that constant state. And I don't know if you guys have heard of ayahuasca. Yeah. Okay. I had done this meditation of Vipassana. And it had connected me. It's like the floodgates of spirituality opened for me. So I was connected to something bigger or higher, like in a frequency than myself. And that was this gravitational pull that was coming from the Amazon jungle. Guys, it sounds crazy, but I swear it does not make sense. But I had no context. Amazon jungle, I thought it was scary as hell. It's now one of my favorite places in the world. There was a pull. There was a pull. And it was my whole journey into South America essentially was to go to the Amazon jungle and to meet ayahuasca.
So you did a full guided.
Yes. So I actually went to ceremony. I had spent, look at the smile on your face.
Yeah, okay, we will get into it. Yeah, tell us.
So I spent, but then I was in South America for a while. So, but the initiation into ayahuasca was, I spent 11 days in the jungle, which is 10 nights and 5 ceremonies. So you rest one day, you have a ceremony. You rest another day, you have a ceremony. And now answering your question, Rajveer, is I just needed to give you context, was that in one night, my first ayahuasca ceremony, I had built this powerhouse of energy because of Vipassana. Vipassana had helped me create this deep energy source inside me. And with my ceremony, when you go into an ayahuasca ceremony, you're sitting with a shaman, okay? We were 8 of us in a maloka. A maloka is like a little, really beautiful, it's like a hut, and everyone has beds. Okay, so there are 4 beds on one side, there were 4 beds on the other side, and the shaman is in the center. And you get a shot glass, and I think you have like half a shot glass. Okay, so he will call you. The shaman calls each and every person in front of him, and he asks you to put your intention into your cup, and then you drink, and it is so nasty. It's medicine. I don't think it's a psychedelic, have a fun party kind of drug. First of all, I really take it personally when people say ayahuasca is a drug, because it's not. It's medicine from the jungle, and it's extremely powerful. So it's not like fun's play. So I put my intention. I had the ayahuasca, and man, it's really difficult because it's like the spirit of ayahuasca like consumes you. It does, for me, it felt like a scan of my whole life. I started to have memories that just started pop up. It's like ayahuasca had entered my system and gone through, like, what is it called? X-ray type, but on a much, much more profound scale. Like I have a scar on my hand, and I got the entire visual because I was 3 years old when this happened. And I saw the entire experience, but I could see my mother and how upset she was, and all these memories that I didn't consciously hold, but they were obviously there in my subconscious memory. And in one night, I cried. I wept, and I healed the trauma and the death of my sister. So one night was bigger than 5 years of trying to reconcile and come to terms with the death of my sister, because it was such a shock to my system. We were all absolutely healthy, and she just dropped dead in a freak accident.
I have heard like it really helps you deal with your trauma,
Yeah.
which is very deep rooted that you don't even know about.
Yeah.
And ayahuasca comes to you. You
Yes.
will never go to ayahuasca. Like,
You can
it's
try.
something-
You can try, and it won't work for you.
I've manifested it because
Yeah.
we spoke about the Ranveer show, Beer Biceps, and he did it.
Yes,
And his
yes.
experience was profound. And
Yeah.
I'm like, one day, I'm not going to go to Amazon, or one day it's going to call me and
Yeah.
I'm going to do it. Because it takes you back, and you're like tapping out all the...
Man, I left the jungle 11 days later with like the body of a very pure form, because it's not only working on like trauma, yes, it's healing, no? So it's physically cleansing you, like there's a purge, okay? So you're on a special diet, you're not taking salt. I think meditation at that point really helped. So whenever anybody asks me about ayahuasca and how they should go about it, because I think it's become a lot more available to the world now than it was when I did it back in 2015. You're on a special diet, okay? You're like really, you're barely eating, because if you eat, it's gonna really mess up your system, and your experience can't go deep. And you're still purging, you're still throwing up, and it's like this black bile or something coming out of you. So it's really toxins that are releasing from your system, which have been like stuck in all kinds. So you're releasing physically, emotionally, energetically. Yeah, I left there with such a strong body and such like a clear mind, a clear and empty. You're like a vessel, no? You just empty out so much unnecessary rubbish, which you consciously and unconsciously pour into yourself. That's why they say that a diet is no longer what you eat. It's what you're seeing, what you're reading, who you're hanging out with. It's all what you're consuming, no? So that's how I left the Amazon jungle. And the amount of gratitude which was pouring out of me, because you just become an expression of love. And that's when I embodied that this whole experience of life is just love, expressions of it.
Was this logical thinking, or was it just like a felt experience?
Man, there's no logic to this. If you try to add logic to this, it doesn't make sense. It's so beyond what you comprehend through the faculty of intellect. And I think that thereafter, so I tell you, I think the purification of ayahuasca really helped Sadhguru to come into my life, because I was receptive to life.
And also, when you meet your higher self, you can't express it. It's so tough.
No.
It's so tough to express that feeling.
There are no words. And then it was very difficult, because I then went on to have, I met San Pedro, which is a psychedelic cactus, which is called the father medicine, because that is a heart opener. Oh my God, your heart will explode in ways you didn't even know was possible. And then a very pure form of natural DMT, which is, your third eye, this thing here. You have your pineal gland, which releases, it secretes a liquid, or what is it called? Something, when you are born.
It's called the Jesus juice.
Yeah. So, so many DMT. Now, at birth, you have a release, and at death, you have a release. Okay. And at certain points in your life, if you have a system which is strong enough to hold a certain very powerful experience, it can release. I know it's been said that sometimes childbirth can really, if you have a very powerful childbirth experience, it can induce the release of DMT in your system. And it is pure bliss. So after I was out of the Amazon jungle, man, you just start attracting things to you. You become a magnet of whatever you're reverberating, the vibrational frequency you're working with. And DMT now took me to, wow, it was like a silo of my life. I started to see my life like what I think people say you would have at a death experience. Your whole life flashes in front of you, but it's so beautiful and it's so blissful. And it only lasted for, I think, 7 to 10 minutes, but it was so big. I couldn't speak for 3 days after that experience. I was at a backpackers. I read a book about it, because I'm like, what just happened here? And since then, I've had many experiences where words this January, I was at the ashram in January with Sadhguru for Samyama, and this time was my 3rd time to Samyama. I came back telling my husband, I don't have words. And I love my life. That is, the immensity of the experience is beyond words. I like living like that now.
And Sadhguru says that to be the best version of you is to be blissful and joyful.
And it's possible. So where Sadhguru is, and I think people have also asked Sadhguru about ayahuasca. And he talks about it's like jumping and seeing something bigger, but you have this brief experience. And then if you don't have a system that can hold that, you're going to fall, and you're going to fall deeper and dig into a hole. That all these things are possible naturally. Your system, the chemical manufacturing factory it is so big and so powerful. You can create all these huge experiences yourself from within. And ayahuasca, I learned, I would have never known otherwise that these things are possible. But it was that foundation of meditation that had created so much energy in me that gave me such big experiences. I just told you about my first night. Every night was taking me into dimensions. Again, I had not heard the word dimensions of life till I met Sadhguru. And I'm like, man, I've experienced this. And I didn't know how to articulate it. So here is this being who is talking all these things, and they're so accessible to any human being, as long as you have a solid foundation. I think that's what in engineering preparing you for, that you want to really explore life beyond just like having a few nice things, a fancy car, maybe a good job, some money, some nice house, all these things. There is more. There's so much more within you and also outside. So how do you tap into that? That's what became Sadhguru's Sadhguru as an experience for me in my life.
I'm guessing that's something that because you said you can do it from within, right? So are you at that point in your life where you can actually do that by yourself without needing the...
So I think because I spent 6 months at the ashram, And the ashram is designed, it's a consecrated space. So there's so much sadhana happening there. Sadhanas are processes of internal purification. Okay. Just the way you take a shower daily or you clean your house, you do your fagya and your, mopping, and you clean your windows and all. And you take this external shower of your skin. Sadhana is that internal shower, that bath you're giving to cleansing your internal framework, which needs a lot of maintenance. You got to keep yourself clean from the inside. So going into the Hatha Yoga teacher training and investing 21 weeks of my life into I think it was 18-hour minimum, 18, 19 hours a day. Yeah, there was a time I was sleeping 5 hours and I was absolutely fine. Understanding yogic sciences, understanding the hacks of the energy system, understanding that this body we have is such a powerful machine. Now, have you read the manual? Just basically learning and dropping so many misconceptions. You don't realize your parents also just they put their ideas into you and you just absorb them, because that's what humans do. We just absorb and not ever questioning so many things. So many things I just dropped because they don't make sense when you have an experience internally of yourself. So deep diving into sadhana, into yoga, that really helped me to understand, wow, you'd finish 5 hours, you wake up at 4, you're doing yoga from 4:30 a.m. till 10 a.m., at which point you're starving, you go for your first meal, and you walk from where we would do our yoga, it was called Adiyogi Alayam, to Bhiksha Hall, where you have brunch. It's like you are floating, okay? You are not even walking. Your body is in such a beautiful internal state. You feel like you're floating. Can you imagine living life like that? It was fantastic. So having those experiences showed me that, yeah, it's very possible. And I met people at ashram who are living like that. But then what happens is when you leave and you're not able to keep up with your practices, life happens. And I think your environments, then the ability comes and goes. So there's times I miss that because I don't have it, but that's the important, I go back once a year to the ashram just to reconnect myself to, charge my energies and remain connected to that so you can keep tapping back to it. But that's what life journey is, really, to stay there.
But you mentioned that life happens, right? And let's say I do the inner engineering course.
Yeah.
But you said you go to the ashram to recoup and forget what I have to do.
Yeah.
But sometimes there's so much influence around us.
Yeah.
I'm guessing with you as well, there's so much influence around you. So how do you keep that strong mindset all the time?
Look, I think if you have an experience which is so profound, then something inside you is just driving you that way. And it can't be one change. It's a lifestyle shift. So the advice Sadhguru gives us at the end of training is that your priorities, what are your priorities? And when you're able to I think food is a great weapon, okay? That you use food there's a time that I would just not eat. If I hadn't done my yoga practice, no yoga, no food. Man, you will do your yoga practice quickly because you are hungry. But you have set this kind of standards for yourself of
you're conditioning your brain to make sure
that what are your priorities in life. And it really helped to be in an environment, an atmosphere with such a supportive team from the Hatha Yoga teacher training that this is possible, right? So you got to put yourself on push start or self start, right? It is not easy in the beginning because the conditioning of the mind is so strong. So it requires a lot of reprogramming of the mind. A lot of what I didn't realize, but now I do, was some NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, and rewiring your brain.
Explain that for the sake of the audience if they've never heard what NLP is.
I know NLP is the lingo in the Western context, okay? But in the yogic context, you start doing sadhana, which is now to drop layers and layers of conditioning, okay? So when you start to do a simple yoga practice, okay, like Shambhavi, all right? One, you don't do anything with the expectation, I'm going to get something out of this. You simply do it for the sake of doing it. Okay? Because your idea of what your expectations are, what I have learned through my own experience, are so limiting that so much more can happen for you than you think. So stop having ideas of what should happen to you. You simply do it for the necessary reasons of doing it. And so many layers of unconscious memory started to rise up and become conscious. And that essentially leads to more awareness. The more awareness you develop, I think it leads to a higher perception. Your perception is enhanced. Now, once those things that inner engineering takes care of, then it's one day at a time. If you tell yourself, man, I got to become like this, I think visualization is very powerful. But then the moment you put pressure on yourself and you like fall back on one day, the next thing you know, a week has gone by and then a month is by. So it's literally one day at a time. That's it. That's it.
Just cutting off layers and layers. I just wanted to go back to this as well. You asked, like, when you come back from such an experience, and then you're surrounded by all these things, and then you set priorities.
Yeah.
It's up to us to say, I want to cut out all of this from my life so that I can focus on having a new way of life.
So, yes. So look, I'll tell you, for me, honestly, every time I come back, I need what I have started to term a soft landing, because I enter another world. I really do. And when I come back, I can't just switch. You know, it's not like going to the beach and coming back to the city. Man, you're entering realms of your being. And at the ashram, I'll tell you some really interesting things. There was a time we were living in the hall, which is consecrated, so it's so powerful, without mirrors. The more advanced yoga programs happened without mirrors. I have gone for days on end without looking at myself. I don't know what I look like. There was a time, I think it'd been like 3 weeks and I hadn't seen my face. I had no idea what my physical form looked like. And that changes you because you drop so much of these ideas and these expectations of yourself or even conditioning from society of what you should look like and what you should be. Man, what is going on within you? So you really need, I think the only way to really reset is you got to invest the time. You got to do the work.
This is
hard work.
This is where you say that, who am I, right? You're a soul. Like, it doesn't matter what you look like, what you...
Exactly. So, but how do you peel off all those layers so that you can reach and have that experience? So it was only after, I would say, I did my yoga teacher training, which was super powerful. I came back, I started teaching. Teaching in itself for me is sadhana, because it allows me to really have this experience that I am just this empty, like a vessel. Something bigger is happening than me. Rajveer, I wanted you guys to come because you needed to experience this. Rajveer has come to Angamardana. What happens there is not me. I sit there and I give a certain set of instructions. I think they lead to profound experiences, especially if you maintain the practices. What I have seen happen to people is phenomenal. But it's not me. It's something happening through me. So how do you prepare yourself to remain empty? I think is huge. And then it took me 2019. So I finished my training in 2017. In 2019, when I sat for the first time with Sadguru and Samyama is the most advanced of yoga programs happening at the Isha Yoga Center, still conducted by Sadguru himself, which is a big deal. Because all the other programs have teachers that he has trained conducting them, were equally amazing. But his presence, you sit with him. And it was then where I was like, wow, the death of my sister led to this experience in my life where I have peeled so many layers to see life in its little bit I saw. Man, this little bit I saw. Who am I? Yeah.
It's so crazy how, like, even all the other guests that we've brought onto the show, and for us as well, there's something horrible that has to happen in your life. So
to awaken
you and I don't know. I feel like we're the chosen few, right? That get the opportunity to change the world, and we have to go through horrible experience to get there. Right? So Shaleen with his dad, you with your sister, me, I would say my most profound was with my ex. And these things...
Heartbreak to the core.
Yeah, heartbreak to the core, and then they awaken you. And now you're in a place of power where now you can just start changing the world. So I think it's it's crazy, sad in a way that you have to deal with something that bad.
Well, it's how you decide to look at it. Because for me, I'm like, man, I'm so glad that these really deep, difficult, tragic experiences happen early in life. The earlier they happen in life, then you're equipped. You quickly start to equip yourself, because as humans, we're malleable, and we're also so adaptive to our environments, because our survival is above everything else, until a certain extent, right? That you got to survive. And the tools that will come to you at aid, and the earlier they come, and I think heartbreak is a sort of death experience, like death in itself. It really awakens you that our time here is so limited, man. Our time here is limited, what we can do with our time. And of course, what is your humanity? What is the essence of what are we doing here? When it comes, so Sadhguru talks about this, that it's unfortunate that such a bad and terrible life experience will bring you to spirituality, but it doesn't have to be that way, It can be beautiful, unfolding, but perhaps we just chose those paths of most resistance.
I just want to share something.
Yeah.
We had gone for a talk, and I realized that my soul's journey is to make an impact in the world. I've always wanted to do good, but how do we do it? Yeah. That question was at the back of my mind, and I don't know if we've ever put it on the show, but I had a dream at 3 a.m., right? Okay. It's so weird.
Okay.
I would never wake up during my dream to write it down or something. I had a dream that me and Rajveer are doing a podcast.
This is before this happened.
Before this happened.
Wow,
this was in March.
That's not a dream, that's a vision.
And I woke up and I messaged him. I'm like, Rajveer, I've had a dream that you and I are doing a podcast and we're going to make a big impact on people's lives. And I went back to sleep. Woke up in the morning at 11. I'm like, really, me, podcast behind a camera? I've never thought about it. Because I honestly, with time, I don't like having that attention towards me. Then he didn't reply. Then I followed up. I'm like, dude, I had this dream. Are we doing it or not? So we had a conversation. We got on the call and we were like, okay, let's look into it. Then we started in May. And
wow.
But that call was a hell yes.
Yeah, it was a hell yes.
But was a hell yes.
That's what I'm saying. For me, it was more like me behind a camera. Like, this is not like it's something out of my normal lifestyle. And then when I understood your soul's journey, I had to go through all the shit that I had to go through my life so that I can be here today. You can
arrive. Yeah, absolutely. I think, so look, when heartbreak happens, no matter how it comes to you, I think there's two things that can happen. You can fall into depression. Maybe most people do. Otherwise, or on the other end of the spectrum, it's like God or some life force, some energy, whatever you want to call God, gives you like this massive like power of motivation to take your life in a direction which is now meaningful with depth and, to a higher purpose.
And I actually wanted to dive deeper into that. And I feel like that would be most helpful for our viewers. Okay. Is a lot of the people experience this form of heartbreak. And like you said, it takes them to depression and it takes them to stuff like alcohol abuse, drug abuse. So what in your mind do you think would help someone at that fork in the road of their lives to be like, okay, I can go this path where I can elevate, or I can go this path and just drop? What word or sentence would you say to help someone in that fork to be like, go this direction?
Okay, so now that you've heard a little bit about my life experiences, in my experience, I gotta give you one word, okay? What? Yoga. Yoga, okay? And not yoga to bend your body and go on Instagram and see like these super tight clothes and perfect postures, extreme, like advanced yoga postures as the perception of yoga. Yoga as in union. The yoga means union. So you go into an experience when you're at that crossroads in your life. One, what you do is you listen. You listen to this inner, deep inside voice, because all of us have what is called our intuition, which is always your guiding light, and it's always pure. Intuition is very powerful. It's not like your intellect. The mind changes its mind every day. Today I love you. Tomorrow I hate you. Tomorrow we're best friends. Tomorrow I don't like you so much, but I need you. It's always doing calculations. Your intuition, on the other hand, I think it's pure. It's a form of pure chit shakti, So when you start to listen to that voice, you don't silence that voice, because it's always guiding you to the light. Right? You don't let that voice become quiet, or you don't let it be overpowered by anything. You keep that voice alive. And then for me, I would just suggest give yoga in its totality an opportunity. So when I first came back from my teacher training, one of the biggest things to do was raising awareness. Just teaching people, guys, there's a way, there are tools. There are tools, the way there are tools to, learn computer science, to learn coding, to learn whatever skill set, photography, all these things, accounting, There's an entire manual to learn tools for self-transformation, okay? And if that is even a little bit further away, focus on your breath. When you're at a crossroads, just if you are able to bring awareness to your breath, am I inhaling or am I exhaling? And maintain a focus there for even a minute. So let's start with a minute. You're starting to go within in a very deep way.
So what's the difference between yoga and meditation?
See, how I have been, my time at the ashram, how we have been trained by Sadguru through so much theory and practical, is that meditation isn't technically, it's not something you do. Meditative is a state you can be in. Okay, so anything that describes meditation is allowing your mind to become a certain level of balanced. Okay, once you go into advanced, deeper states of meditation, it's to develop stillness, right? So the goal of meditation is to use your mind to achieve stillness. I mean, I'm still also on my journey, so this is what I think right now. If you asked me this question 5 years ago, I would have answered differently. If you ask me this question 5 years from now, I would answer differently. But right now, for me, meditation, it's first of all this powerhouse of energy. But now that I can sit and my mind cannot overpower me continuously, it takes me to stillness, where now downloads start just coming in, where you just start to make yourself receptive to higher forms of life, whatever that may mean. Yoga is, it's a life. First of all, again, Sadhguru talks about this in one of his videos, that yoga was the destination and people made it a journey. Yoga is a state of being. When you are in total harmony, your mind, body, and life energies are all in one direction. They're all moving the same way. But what's happened with our lives is our minds are so, first of all, our attention spans, our minds are lost. They're so limited, distracted. Our bodies have become like lumps of food, which we no longer take for nutrition, but food that is poisoning us. And our energies are all over the place, so they're completely frazzled. So if everything was moving in the same direction in one way, then you are in yoga. So there's one aspect where I think how Isha Yoga is designed is that you will do practices where you are doing yoga. But if you stay with these practices, and I have experiences for myself, you're no longer doing, for example, Surya Kriya. Surya Kriya is happening to you. And it is so incredible where all of you is moving in one direction. All parts of you, they're all moving in one direction. And that, I think, is living yoga. Yeah. Yoga is not physical postures only. Yeah.
I did attend your
Angamardana.
Yeah, it was crazy to say the least, but really, like, it started off with the meditation, and the meditation was in a form of an invocation. Is that what it's called? So yeah, I think a lot of people get the term meditation wrong, in that, you sit in one place and you just breathe, but it could be a lot of different things.
That's why meditativeness, it's a state of being. It's not really something you're doing. Yeah.
Even when we started this podcast today, you told us to just sit in silence and breathe. That is also meditation, right?
So, in fact, within me,
Yeah.
I forgot, invocation. What I was doing within myself, it was invocation. It's just creating an internal situation within yourself, which is conducive to how you will show up in the world, I think. Yeah.
And I was watching a video a couple of days ago. It's this guy who's using Sikhism to now blend modern.
I know what you're talking about. I saw it too.
Yeah,
it's so good.
Yeah, he's really, really
Yeah.
good. And he was speaking about how we're always meditating, but you could meditate in the positive. You can also meditate in the negative.
Yeah.
And that's where all these things of anxiety and stress come, because a lot of people are meditating in the negative, and so
Yeah.
they can't find stillness.
Yeah.
So, so when people throw out that term meditation, it's actually a tool to bring you into
A state of being within yourself. Exactly. Meditation is largely because it's okay, it can be a moving meditation, or like, most people, how they understand is you'll go on an app, on some kind of app, you'll, put on your headphones or whatever, you'll sit and you'll try to attempt a meditation, right? So you're using largely the faculties of your mind and energies, right? In yoga, you are employing your body now also to help you to arrive to certain states. Like, I don't know if you still remember in Sadhguru's introduction video to Angamardana, he talks about how the body thinks. You think your mind thinks, the body thinks, and the body thinks a lot more clearly than the mind. So when your body is confused, you are in trouble. Now, how do you start to activate the intelligence of your body in such a way that your whole body is geared towards working towards helping you, benefiting you, not making you dull? Again, we are alchemists. Whatever you're doing, it's your own doing. Unfortunately, a lot of it is unconscious. But the more and more you become conscious to the state of what you're capable of, you realize, like you're saying, that you could be meditative and completely negative. You don't mean to, but you have set so many parameters towards negative habits and conditioning that's just where you're going to go, and exponentially, And likewise, like once you develop a good habit, only good habits start to be attracted. And once you develop one bad habit, only bad habits start to. So it's really now, that's where you have the faculties of the mind. And are you on push start or are you on self start? You see?
Taking back to, you mentioned about food, people poisoning themselves with food. How does it relate to in terms of the yoga practices that you're doing?
Wow. Okay. So I think by the end, in a lifetime, I think we consume a couple 1,000 tons of food. In one person's lifetime, when they live to be 70 years old, thousands of tons of food. So essentially this body, other than the energies that are holding it up, is just food that turns into making you who you are, right? And now what we have done with food is that when you put flavor and taste at the forefront of what your diet, your food experiences, nutrition is no longer even inside the spectrum of what food is, right? So when you're doing certain yoga, all yoga practices, before we start, we actually have certain conditions we set in place whereby you need to be on an empty stomach condition, because the whole point of the yogic practices that we are doing is to ascend energy upwards in your system. You want to move energy up, up, up. Now, if your body is full, it's going to make you dense. It's going to make you heavy. And then energies cannot rise. Okay? So the more you eat, the more lethargy you're going to have, the more heaviness you're going to have. And then because of the lacing of sugar in so much food we eat, there is this compulsive need to have more and more and more, right? So it's making you very lethargic and dense. So when you want to come into the practice of yoga, you have to be literally at the other end of the spectrum. You have to be empty, because if you don't eat, like right now, for example, any of us, if we don't eat for 3 days, we're not going to die. But our energy levels might spike up to what you can't even imagine. So the amount of what we eat to what we need to eat has really, really widened in terms of the gap.
I do agree in terms of the empty stomach, because it's Shravan month, right? So this is my first time ever doing the fast. I've never fasted in my life. Okay. So I'm having 1 meal a day. Yeah. The amount of clarity of my mind is incredible.
Also strength of your mind, because you've got to maintain the discipline and you got to stay strict with yourself. Yeah.
And there are certain conversations and dialogues that I've attracted, or things that I've attracted, and it's happening.
Yeah.
We wanted someone on board, and I told him, I don't know how we're going to make it do it. And I just sat and I'm like, no, I'm feeling so much energy that I'm trying to, the way you said, there's an energy pulling you out. I was literally putting it out in the universe. I'm like, I want to pull this guy. I just want him to reply to the email. That's all I want. And it happened.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking positive. Somewhere, I don't know if there's any relationship between it, but my gut is so clear.
There is.
I've cleansed my colon and I'm feeling like like so good. Like
Yeah, your energy levels are much better because, so again, this is something I learned at the ashram, we have 2 meals a day. Okay. And again, your entire schedule, entire life is around your yoga practices. So you need to eat in a certain way where you have the empty stomach condition to continue with your practices, because we're practicing twice a day and you're practicing for about 4-5 hours a day, physical practice. And then there's the theory and the diet. So food, your relationship with food will determine the quality of your life, especially in today's world. We're eating out and, trying this cafe, this restaurant, and like the pastime or the social aspect of it is so big. Control over food is more important, imperative. So the yogic lifestyle talks largely about, prana. Food gives you prana. Prana is life energies. So you have negative prana foods, positive prana foods, and neutral. That which you're consuming, which is not doing anything for you. Now it's up to you to decide, like, am I going to choose negative prana or positive pranic foods?
So all of this, how would you say this relates in the modern sense of mental health?
Again, I have to talk about my own experience because I have had a very dark phase of my life. Okay, that must be like 10 years ago. So because I have internalized the experience of having a bad constitution of mental health, like I've had some really depressive or low lows of my mental health, I can now say that there is another way of being. Okay, that equally, if you live in a very depressive state, equally there is a very happy and blissful way of being. Right? It exists. So to somebody who has very dark days and they think that that's the whole of life, because I just read this quote, it says something like, whatever is within you is how you will see the world. So if you're very depressive, you're going to see the world as dark and everything's wrong and this issue and that issue. And if the internal state of your being is, just happy, then life is colorful and beautiful and opportunities and positivity, So start paying more attention to what is happening inside you. And it's about time everyone starts that small exploration, because it really expands. The way this world is so big, the world within is even bigger. And you just have to make that small shift of thinking about it. I think sometimes it's just planting the seed of think about this, your breath, your connection to your life. Right now, as you sit here, what do you think is the most important part of your bodies?
Good question.
I just hit you at that.
Yeah, exactly. Now I'm trying to.
Heart?
Your brain, your heart. Yeah, those are parts of your body. Important.
I think my brain, yeah.
Your brain.
I don't know. I feel like everything is like the most important part. Like if I cut my thumb yesterday and I'm just like, I loved it when my thumb was not cut.
Yeah. Pain receptors.
Yeah.
So in yoga, we hold the spine as the most important part of your body, because the spine is giving you your perception and experience of life. Okay. So you've sat here for 30, 20 something years of your life not knowing this. People come to my yoga class 1, I see they don't know how to breathe. Breath is something on automation. Whether you're aware of it or not, it is going to happen, right? And people have gone through their whole life. And these are like 50, 60-year-olds who are coming to a yoga class because they have physical health problems now, which they need to do something about. And the doctor has told them that there's only so many pills you're going to pop. You need to do yoga, right? And they come and they have never, ever focused on their breath or try to develop the quality of their breath, and have no relationship to their spine. The entire experience of your life is about the quality of your spine, and you're not even aware of it. So let's talk about, these are some of the misconceptions I went to ashram and learned about. Oh my God, what? And you internalize these things. And it's one thing for somebody to tell you these things, but you've got to experience it for yourself. Then nobody needs to tell you anything, because the knowing is, the truth is in your life. Yeah.
Tony Robbins.
Of course.
Yeah. So I did his course. I can't remember the name. There was one thing he spoke about. He's like, when you're depressed, what do you usually look like? It's like, you're like
exactly.
This. And then when you're happy, you're like this. So like that definitely, it's in line with the relationship to the spine, because when you're feeling sad, all you need to do is stand like this, and all of a sudden, boom, you feel good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the breath.
Yeah.
He taught something called heart breathing, where you just breathe into your heart And then now you're being aware of your breath. And then I remember, like, way long before we even started the podcast, Shalini was like, I'm so stressed with work and I'm angry and everything. And I'm like, here, 5 minutes breathing every day. Trust me.
Rajveer is full of these tools. I tell you, he's a very
No,
well-versed
he's
spiritual
exposed to
man.
it. Yeah,
yeah,
no,
yeah. But he's. You see, I think that's also it. That you have to decide. You have to be at that really deep, dark space within yourself, and you have to make that call. Do I want better for myself? That in itself is a seed you've planted. That you want more. You want better. And I remember Sadhguru talking to us about how we're at the cusp of a mental health pandemic. That mental health is real and it's not apparent because you can't see it the way you can see I broke my hand or I broke my leg, but it's so apparent in people's life. And I think at that point you have to just choose, I want more and I want better. And then life will take you there.
But also there's this misconception, I'll say, within our generation. We keep saying that we're spiritual, but we're not curious about spirituality. So I kept saying that I'm spiritual, but I never understood it till I started getting curious and now learning about it. Yeah, seeking the answers. Right.
I like that you say that because there's a lot of like, oh, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual.
Yes,
And
that's
you're
how
like,
it begins.
Yeah. And then, like, I used to say the same thing and I had no freaking clue. Like, today, standing here where I am today, I had no freaking clue. Like, this is what spirituality meant. And I was just there talking shit.
Back in the day with our cultures, right? If you go to the temple, you're religious, you're spiritual, and you get all these kinds of definitions or where it ticks off all those boxes. So I tell all my friends, yeah, I'm spiritual. I'm not religious. That's why I don't go to the temple.
Yeah.
But I still believe in one supreme energy and all that. Yeah. But when I started digging in, now it makes sense that there's so many unanswered questions that I really need to keep diving into so that I understand it more. Now when we have these conversations and I'm like, okay, there is so much that I don't know.
Yeah.
And it makes sense. Sadhguru himself, I started watching his YouTube shorts and videos and I'm like, this man, it's not religion. It's not a religion. It's not by a book, but he talks from experience. He talks life. My parents never told me that who am I and what's the supreme energy? Nothing. I was told, yes, I'm a vessel, I have a soul, and I have a purpose. When I heard that, I'm like, oh, okay, wait, what's my purpose? Is it to just earn money, be on that cycle of like
rat race?
Yeah, that rat race, right? And it's so toxic. It is so toxic. I'm glad Rajveer is in my life because now this breathing in and when I meditate, I'm like super conscious about meditating. And even if I do it for 5 minutes, I feel this thing under my skin. I'm like, oh my God, this is so beautiful. But again, I'm getting into it. So everyone who's like getting into spirituality, understand why you're getting into it. Don't just say, oh yeah, I'm spiritual. These are all these layers that you're talking about. There's so much into it. Yeah.
Feeling. I would also invite you to make it's really an invitation because you've got to internalize it. Are you goal setting? Are you living with goals or are you living with intentions? Right? When you set a goal, that means you're looking for an outcome. Naturally, I want to reach this goal, which means I'll earn this much money or I'll lose this much weight or I'll go on these many holidays, whatever. Okay? You set a goal and then it has to reach that goal, optimizes, and there's an outcome. Then what? Okay? Then you start to say, okay, now my goal is this. And you reach that, and then my goal is this. And you're constantly, again, it's another form of a race. And you're going to go in circles. It's not going to take anywhere. But if you transition to living intentionally, you have an intention. But the way intentions unfold is that it's like a bottomless pit. They will just take you deeper and deeper. And depth is where the profoundness of life is happening. So as opposed to seeking externally, external validation will come. If inside you are a blissful being, it will just show. If you have flowers, you fix the root, you fix the soil, and the flower will appear. It's in that same way that there's so much power in living intentionally because if your intention is strong enough, it will unfold. But I think it should unfold in ways you can't imagine and even bigger and better than you could have possibly dreamt for yourself because I think that's what my life has become.
It's great that you brought up that question, and I was thinking about it a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
Living intentionally, it's something that needs to be practiced.
Yes,
You can't just say, oh, today I'm going to live intentionally. Because there's so many things that happen in your life. Yeah. So for me, I am, I told you about the marketing agency
of course
that I'm working on.
Yes.
And there's so many curveballs that I'm just being they're just being thrown my direction. I'm like, oh my God, how do I deal with all of this? And then I sat down and I'm like, okay, this is of something that maybe the higher power has brought to me to practice, that I don't really need to be result oriented. I need to be journey oriented, or rather process oriented, and just focus on that, and then have the intention, right? Set the right intentions with it. And now, just that small shift, and always trying to remember that I need to practice, I'm a lot less stressed.
There's that simple shift.
Yeah.
The awakening of a conscious man. See, again, yoga and what Sadguru is offering, I think through one of the tools called Isha Kriya, is that a little bit of space between you and what is happening. So again, to stop being not react to a situation, but respond to it. Okay. And then these are the small ways, but within yourself, you should remain a certain way, because as long as life is going to happen, suffering is a part of this mix, these situations, and you need them, because if they weren't there, you'd be bored. And how would you grow? Because challenge helps you grow, so you need them. They keep things exciting. So if you have that little gap where you don't become the problem, a problem comes to you and you can face it and respond to it, as opposed to react because now you are the problem and then you are completely all over the place. You have this little bit of space within you, and that space can do wonders, because you're in balance. Then everything externally has to happen. It has to unfold. We're all living in a big show and play of karma. So at least you're showing the signs of the awakening of a conscious man, which we all are waiting for to happen to more men. I think collectively it is, but conscious men, man, there's a shortage of y'all.
Yeah,
we need y'all to awaken. It's happening. Of course, a woman's journey with a divine feminine is very different, but I see more and more men trying to express their divine masculinities. Where you are a god.
That you're bringing this up, and I feel like we really need to have a podcast just about divine masculine and divine feminine. I've been trying to talk to him about it,
because that's essentially what all this work we are trying to do is embodiment of divinity. Man, it's the peeling of the layers, and what expressions come out through that. Again, our words are so limiting. We're trying to be in experiences which are so much more profound, but at least this is a beginning. And you start with mental health, but I think what you're really working towards is the becoming expressions of the divine masculine, really. And I've seen some really conscious men, they're making their own sharings now. How do you treat a woman? How do you treat your work life? Because it's very survival instinct to go to earn money now. When those certain survival instincts are taken care of, there's only so much money you need to survive. Everything else is just in excess, I feel. What is your experience of life going to be in that masculine approach to it? How a man expresses himself in all his divinity. Oh my God, it's beautiful. I can't speak to that. I just wait to hear about it. And I hear men doing it. Yeah. So
they will definitely have...
It's exciting. And I feel like for him, you're going to break so many beliefs. Because I don't
have beliefs, but I have a certain...
You have conditioning.
I have a certain view of it in this current world that we're in. So that's the conversation that we were having. And sometimes you need to understand the dynamics of how the world works right now. Not everyone is spiritual. Not everyone's on the path to be conscious. Everyone's, the mindsets right now, so...
survival based, like she said.
Yeah. And I think also our minds have become so short span, like the lifespan of a thought or an idea is so small, which is dangerous. That's why the only real path to growth is you got to do the work. You got to read a book, okay? Not listen to a 10-second short or reel, right? The depth. But even me, I see there's so much to consume.
Some of it helps. So
of course,
so if you look at the brighter side, we some people don't have time to watch. Let's say Sadguru, because Sadguru can speak for hours and hours. So I'll be like, how do I find 3 hours? But now I can probably find
30 seconds.
few 10 seconds Sorry. So now I can find pretty much a few 10 seconds to watch it and absorb that particular topic.
Yeah.
And it kind of makes sense.
But when you continue to do that, have you seen what we're doing to our minds? We're making their span shorter and shorter,
True.
which means that what you're consuming is less. How you react is less. How you feel is less.
Yes,
Everything
true.
is less, and then it's skewed. And then there's no depth.
I agree with you that there's no depth because yes, you can watch,
You've got a snippet of
there's
it.
a reason why he's speaking for 3 hours. And when you pick up 30 seconds, that 30 seconds will only relate to you in the context that you're living in that period of your life. So that's kind of how you're going to perceive it. Whereas when you watch a 3-hour long video, he's going to give you the entire perspective shift first, and then you learn the lesson and you learn it the right way.
And it
you agree with
stays
that.
with you. Because you've taken content for 10 seconds, it's going to stay with you for that long. But if you've invested...
it depends on the person how he absorbs it, right? So if... Okay, we
Look at these judgments.
I bring
I absorb
reality.
information easier and better than you do.
I bring reality. Sometimes, yes, conversations are great, but sometimes reality is important. If I want to learn how to make green juice in the morning, I would prefer to watch a 10-second drill compared to watching a video where she'll tell me 15 minutes of everything. It makes sense. What you're saying, I don't disagree, but maybe my lifestyle is super busy where I feel like I can absorb what he's saying, relate it to my life, and work on it after those 10 seconds. Maybe the 3-hour information may be too much, and I'll be like, okay, what did I pick out of it? Maybe just 4 points, but those 10 seconds where it's emphasizing on that very particular point, then I go back and be like, okay.
Man, I got to throw an analogy at you. Okay, you want to learn how to make this green juice, right? And you put this, boom, it's ready, right? You put in an apple. What is an apple? What are the nutrients in the apple? Why should you take the apple and mix it with a ginger?
I get you.
And you should mix it with this and that. You need to understand. And then that will stay with you for life. When you just consume the juice, fine, you've got that relief. But depth, we are missing depth. You got to do the work. You got to do the work.
Okay, guys.
And I can say that comfortably because I spent 6 months in an ashram. So I'm not talking the talk. I've walked the walk, and I have known that that time I invested in myself to delve deeper, fine. You don't need to put 5 months, you can put 5 days, but if you make that investment in yourself, it will yield. It will really show how you show up in the world. It will show.
It sticks with you. Yeah, and you've mentioned that like a couple of times. The thing with like reels and stuff, you keep scrolling and then
your attention span is lost.
Yeah.
So you said your lifestyle doesn't allow for it. It's that, what are your priorities? You see,
Okay.
it comes down to less is more. But it's very difficult because look at how like the world is moving and like what people's desires are. When your life is more about the external accumulation of life, you got to be on the go. But when it's about the internal accumulation of life, I think when that realization really sits in that time is short, like 30 years is going to pass by like this. It's so fast. I mean, in existence, in a cosmos, which is like millions, billions of years old, we don't even know how old it is, that we are literally a blip. You're in and out. Yeah, you get 30, 40, 50, you get 70. Maybe with science, technology, you get 80, 90, 100 years. What have you done with that much time? Have you just gone to work and make money? Or have you really explored what is this whole life about? Because as human beings, it takes 84 births to arrive at the human experience where you can see the profoundness of life in all its magnificence. Do you really want to realize that? So it really depends on what you're looking for in this lifetime.
Well, I am seeking answers. But anyway, let's move on. I have a question, a very pressing question.
Yes.
You mentioned there's some aspect of yoga that's physical.
Yes.
With what you teach. Yeah. When it comes down to people who have, I can only think of arthritis, right?
Yeah.
If some people have problems or sickness and they're limited to that experience, is there a way that you go about it?
Look, yeah, so there can be physical disorders, absolutely, but mobility has to be there, okay? The moment you stop moving, you're asking for trouble, all right? So the whole point of yoga is so it can be very fast-paced, like Angamardana, which is a yogic workout, Or it can be yogasanas, which is now depth, where you're holding onto an asana, right? There's all through the spectrum, there's some kind of movement or another, right? But one is your movements have to be in a certain alignment. Yoga, the biggest myth we break, yoga is not about your flexibility. Okay. I have people come to me, I can't practice yoga. I'm not flexible, but they've never tried anything. They've just decided to empower that thought that I'm not flexible, so I can't do yoga. They've never tried to bend down or do anything in the yogic asana perspective, but they've decided this. And they've never ever thought about alignment, So yoga is not about your flexibility, it's about your alignment. So if you even help somebody with arthritis or any kind of disorder come into the right alignment, the body produces its own medicines. It can heal itself. There's so much out there about, the mind and the body healing itself. So I think that if you start to focus physical movements, even if they're not in their full capacity, you can't touch your head to your knees, but you're attempting that with a certain refinement, alignment, technical precision, it will surprise you what your body can do for you. And then you coordinate your breath with your movements. Magic.
I saw that you have a retreat coming
Yes.
up. Do you mind telling us more about it? Like, what's the experience going to be like?
Yeah, sure. So I have been teaching yoga for 7 years now. Okay. And largely Isha yoga is modeled in workshops. So the idea is not that you come to a yoga class, you come to a yoga workshop. And at a workshop, you're empowered with tools. So depending on depending on what is your intention, what are you looking for, right? When I first started teaching, women used to come, only women. Men wanted to come, and there were men who tell me, listen, I want to come, but I'm shy because only women show up to yoga classes. It was almost like a taint on your masculinity if you wanted to come to a yoga class. And then over the years, I remember sitting in a Gamarna class where there were more men than women, which was like, wow, it's happening. Men are like seeing there's a global shift. I think COVID helped also with a bigger awakening. So you learn a workshop and then you take these tools and then you can practice on your own at your own commitment, will, and time. But it became, through the years, I've seen that most people would drop the practice. Those who keep it up go very far, but the majority cannot. They don't have the supportive environment, atmosphere, and diet. So this is something, the retreat has been something birthing inside me for a while now. So the idea is to work with a group of people intentionally to let them have experiences within themselves, which will help them to come back into life as they know it, where they live in their homes, and maintain the practice. So the retreat is designed essentially to help you prepare and create the right conditions so that you can have an experience of life, which is just designed to take you more into yoga. So because it's a beautiful setting, okay, we're in Malindi, we're working with the elements because yoga, again, everything we do in yoga is simply to bring a certain union, harmony, balance of the 5 elements. So the intention is to go and work, not to do yoga, but to be in yoga and to have an experience that is holistic, where you have a comfortable accommodation space to live, a very supportive environment conducive for safe space to be in, to practice yoga, and then we take care of your diet. We feed you all what you need so you understand how your body can be fueled by nutrition, yoga, and boom, we're setting all the right conditions and we see.
When's this happening? What are the
It's
dates?
happening in October. So the wonderful thing is, all Kenyans wait for October because October becomes that 1 month where we have 2 public holidays and we're always praying that there's a weekend and then it becomes a long weekend. So this is happening from the 10th to the 13th of October because 10th is a Thursday. So the yoga retreat starts on Thursday and ends on 13th, which is a Sunday. So you get a long weekend. You just take Friday off, boom. And yeah, it's happening in October on that 10th weekend holiday in Malindi. Diamonds is a beautiful, recently re-renovated and upgraded 5-star hotel resort. It's a resort. We've designed an entire, what is it?
I saw a
profile.
nice ebook. Yeah, very nice ebook.
It's a flip book or there's a PDF where you can go through the content. And then I intend to have consultations, one-to-one consultations with anyone who wants to sign up so that you really work intentionally, not for goals or, for anything other than to see it's a lifestyle. The Leela lifestyle, the Leela Shala started as a dream of lifestyle shifts towards more conscious living in all spheres of your life. More consciousness, more perception of life. Boom.
More power.
Yeah. Power is there. It's how do you access it? No, you set the right conditions. Then it happens.
I think the last thing that I just want to maybe one sentence, or you can agree or disagree. If someone's going through something crazy in their life, again, that fork in the road, they just come to you. And then you'll be the instrument to guide them that way.
So even if before they want to come to me, if somebody's at that fork, you download, because we're such tech savvy kids, you download the Sadguru app. Okay, because the Sadguru app is using an AI system where it will ask you a certain set of questions. Once you go into the app, it's going to ask you, what are you looking for? And then it's going to show you. It's going to take your description, man, woman, age. What are you looking for? And then the entire software is going to give you what you need. Of course, there's so many free tools also. There's so much content where Sadhguru is talking about on so many subjects. His articulation and his relevance to appealing to our generation, or people where regardless of what creed, color, religion, background you come from, he's appealing to your humanity. So I think that's a great first resource, that just download the app and then explore it. And there's some free resources there already to begin your journey, okay? Basic Upayoga practices, meditations, give them a go, okay? And then if you're into reading, there are books, because books are such a rich and powerful resource. I love reading. And I mean, he shares his whole life history. There's a book called More Than a Life, where Sadhguru talks about his lives. And the book starts, and I remember this from the first time I read it, which was like 7 years ago, is that this is a story, this is your life, blah, blah. You will be a fool to believe this story, and you will be an even bigger fool not to believe this story. And then he goes on to talking about his lives and what has led to what Sadhguru and Dhyanalinga, which was essentially what he has, one of his key offerings, core offerings to humanity has been. So books, then there's death. I think exploring the concept of death, because when you're at a crossroads, you're kind of at like a death experience. Death means so many things, renewal of life, if anything. I think we need to come out of the fear around death. It's a part of life. I think once you have a plant at home, it internalizes. It really helps you go through life and death, because a plant is not going to live forever. It has its cycles. It renews, it regenerates, it grows, it flowers, it dies. I think your dad will really, take to that. And then it regenerates, and we do too. We're all in this cycle. So he explores death. And the book says death for all those who will die, And that is hugely awakening. I think the Inner Engineering book is amazing. It gives you the tools in a nutshell, but then you have to experience it. So you go into Shambhavi and Karma. Karma is a really fantastic book as well. It's just hacks on how you should live, like sadhana, simple sadhana. I'll give you one, is that when you want to intensify yourself, keep away. You love something, keep away from it. I love chocolates. I'm not going to eat chocolates. I'm not going to eat chocolates. I'm not going to eat chocolates. And then you're going to create what is a tamas inside you, a certain power. And then that power yields.
So that's detaching yourself from temptation.
Yeah, I think, yes.
So you can focus on the higher.
Yeah, so it gives you
purpose.
very practical applications of, try do this. One of my favorite parts of the Karma book is sacrifice. What is the meaning of sacrifice? Real sacrifice.
Shedding, letting go.
So he describes it as when you give up something in order to get something else, that is commerce.
That's commerce, yeah. No, that's not sacrifice.
When you give up something to get nothing, that is sacrifice. So, I mean, it's full of so many wonderful things. And then, of course, then once you have really shown that, yes, I'm willing, able, and committed, then you come to me. We will talk. I can share whatever has really benefited me. Living in grace, to be in the presence of a living master, lifetimes of longing to, I can't tell you, like my life revolves around what Sadhguru has empowered me with, which is just that life is blissful, man. Life is good. Bad things happen, yes, all these things, but within yourself, that wow, I'm like so grateful to be alive. I'm so thankful for all that I have and all those things.
Well, thank you so much, Chandni, for coming and sharing this beautiful journey and these beautiful words of wisdom. Wow.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is there any last words that you want to share with our viewers?
You got to do the work.
I feel like you were going to say that.
You got to do the work.
You got to do the work. With that, thank you guys for joining us on today's episode of the Men's Forum with the amazing Chandni Khetia. We hope you guys enjoyed it, and we will see you guys next week.
Like, share, and subscribe.
Peace.